The plate hit first, a white ceramic fastball that cracked against my shoulder and sprayed the kitchen with tiny moons of porcelain. And I didn't shout, didn't flinch, just looked at the kid with the shaking hands and said calm, like weather that hurt, "And I'm not leaving. I bleed like you, now grab a sponge." From the doorway, a man cleared his throat, twirling coal, the type magazines call visionary, jaw tight like he'd been holding one breath for 3 years. "You all right?" he asked, and I said, "I'm on the job." My name is Tessa Rowe, and people think I work with kids. Truth is, I work with earthquakes, the kind that move through houses wearing sneakers and grief. Harbor Ridge looked like a glossy brochure, cedar glass, a lawn that never learned the word winter. But the air felt like an argument that never ends, 30 nannies gone in a month. 2 boys who could outlast a storm and make you feel small doing it. Jace and Nolan, 5 years old, with eyes older than mine. First day, they threw the playbook at me, fake snake in the bread drawer. Sugar swapped for salt. A ceramic rooster already dead on the floor, like a warning. I tasted the ruined pie, slid 2 plates across the table and said, "We fix what we ruin, and we eat our mistakes." You know what I mean? Their faces did that thing. Kids' faces do when a rule quietly changes, confusion first, then anger, then, if you stay, something like relief. By dinner, they were elbow deep in suds, not scared, not shamed, just following a voice that didn't need to get loud to mean it. And that night when I sang a nothing song my grandma used to hum, when the lights went out, the house breathed different. Even Ruth, the house manager, heard it and nodded like maybe she could stop holding the walls up with her shoulders for 1 minute. Morning came with no fires. I knocked at 7. Not hard, just honest. The boys showed up with crooked buttons and socks that disagreed and tried to outgrin me for more milk. "Nice try," I said. "We don't grade faces here." And when Sterling wandered in, half-tied and braced for disaster, he froze at the sight of eggs, toast, and 2 kids chewing with their mouths closed. Because yesterday I kept my word, and today they believed me. "Did you bribe them?" he asked, and I said I was consistent. Yeah, that happened. That should have been the turn, but it wasn't. The turn was a breakfast table set for 4 when only 3 of us had the guts to sit clip-on bow ties, 2 little wolves with brave eyes, and at the far end, the head no one touched since Lila left, a plate, a napkin, a fork that gleamed like hope with shaky hands. "It's for Mom," Nolan said, "in case she wants to eat with us again." And no one gave a speech. No one snapped a rule into place. Sterling just reached for the syrup and poured a little extra on the pancakes in front of the empty chair. Permission. That's what grief needed in that house. People ask why I said 30 days like I was daring the place to break me. Truth is folks believe you faster when you don't need anything from them. 30 days was my way of saying I'd be there because I chose to, not because I was trapped. And with men who fix the world by fixing calendars, that matters. He took me to the music room one afternoon, dust in the sun like snow. You could breathe. Pressed play on a violin track. Lila recorded, said she wanted the boys to remember her music if they forgot her voice. That's a sentence you put down gently. I told him they don't talk, because they don't know if it's allowed. And he doesn't ask, because he's not sure he can hold the answer. "You're not a therapist," he said. "No. But I know what silence does to boys," I said, and you could feel the house agree. Then the past knocked, not like a ghost, like a man. A photo slid under my door. Me at 17 outside a brick box with razor wire, my brother Ethan beside me in cuffs. And Sterling found me on the porch with the picture in my lap, waiting to see which version of me I'd hand him the headline or the whole thing. The man in our foster home liked control. Ethan talked back. I took a lamp to the man's head. 6 months for me, a transfer for my brother. Survival is not pretty, but it's honest. and Sterling didn't hand me forgiveness like a biscuit. But later I found that photo reprinted and framed next to another one he dug up. Me at a church basement with two kids wearing me like a medal. And under it he'd written "Same person," which is not a poem, but it might as well be. The first threat looked petty. My debit card declined for ice cream, then my bank app locked. Then the dogs at midnight went from bored to biblical, and two hooded figures danced against the north gate. One filming, one testing, not breaking in so much as studying. Angle's lights blew the lawn open. A warning shot tore the silence and they ran. But morning showed our cameras had been looped 10 seconds at a time. A ghost trick, and tucked inside the server cabinet was a scrap of paper with one word in block letters: closer. A flash drive arrived on my pillow when the system was secure. Dozens of videos I never consented to. Me changing shirts, me sleeping with Nolan, snoring into my shoulder, the boys laughing in the garden. And the last file was a man in a small room with winter light on his face and a thin scar like a hyphen on his upper lip. "Hello, Tessa, not live," he said, like he cared. "You're safe in this second. But I've been learning you for months. Your face, your voice, your habits, the way you touch a child's shoulder before you speak. I'm going to make a story that outruns your mouth. It won't matter what you say after that. It'll feel like art," and he smiled the way men do when they confuse cruelty with craft. Sterling watched me watch it and said, "Then we tell our story first," so I called Teresa Blake, a social worker who once paid my GED fee and pretended she didn't. And we went live from a chair by a messy shelf lamp. Warm, no podium, no polish, I said. My name said, "I take kids out of the dark, and men with money don't like that." I named the scar without a last name. I told the truth like it could stand up without a crutch. You know what I mean? Minutes after we cut a new video, hit our server, same man, same scar, and behind him, someone I loved, bound to a chair, my cousin Alonzo. The message was simple. You speak, I answer. And that's how the FBI ended up in Sterling's study, running lines through shell companies with soft names and sharp teeth. Carter moved through data like a blade found a ledger. Somebody tried to bury under corrupted noise money paid to consultants. No one met, loops that touched the edges of the Cole Foundation, without naming a villain in the family. Just naming a door someone else used. The house groaned under old weight secrets, exhaling like tired lungs. Alonzo's phone pinged for 3 minutes near an old mill we rolled out at twilight. Floorboards crying under our boots. The air wet with rope and mildew. We found him alive behind a steel door, booby-trapped like a dare. The blast chased us up the stairs and spit us into the grass. And in the ambulance breath, he gave us coordinates to a cabin where the scar kept his choir of lies. The place looked abandoned. It wasn't inside a wall of faces with red string and a server humming like a heartbeat that didn't belong to us. The scar flickered onto a screen to lecture about power and story. But a tiny log in the corner of his own feed told the truth by accident. The delay was short enough to smell our county line, Carter called units. We hit a private airstrip where a jet was already warming. To leave the mess behind, he stepped into the door, coat grabbing air, shoulder easy, like a man who's never been held to anything. The shot came from the flank, not me, not Sterling. The kind of shot professionals take when people are done bleeding for other people's art. He stumbled, smiled anyway. Because that's what men like him do. You ruined the art, he said, almost tender. No. I told him it was almost permanent. After that, the noise changed shape. Some suits resigned with polite statements. Some numbers finally told on themselves. The boys slept. I measure change in sleep. And pancakes at 6 a.m. tasted like cinnamon instead of alarms. The empty chair still shows up some mornings, and it's allowed to. We pour syrup there sometimes because permission is a kind of love. Sterling asked me to take an ethics job, and I said yes, with one rule: if the numbers look good and the people look small, the numbers are lying. And he laughed, because his shoulders know how to drop now. You want a clean ending? I don't have one. Cade pled not guilty, hired a lawyer who calls women emotional. With a smile, there will be hearings and appeals and men who think a deepfake is cheaper than the truth. But there are also two boys who set the table on time. A man who shows up instead of orders a house that breathes without asking permission. And a woman who will not be erased by anyone's art. You know what I mean? That plate still aches in my shoulder when it rains. I don't mind. It's a reminder that things shatter and people bleed and the work is to stay. Pick up a shard, toss it in the trash, hand someone a sponge. So tell me before you scroll. When a woman with a past stands up to power, do we label her dangerous or brave? Did going public protect those boys or put them at risk? Where have you seen silence dressed up as good manners? Church, school, the office. Your own family table, drop your city. Tell me what staying power looks like, where you live, who taught it to you. And if this hit somewhere you didn't expect, tap like so the story doesn't get buried. Share it with somebody who needs a steady light. Then argue with me in the comments about right-wrong reputation and the cost of telling the truth.